Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to dive into state machines and also touch on event buses. But before we get into coding, let's talk about what they are and why they are important for you as a developer. A state machine is simply a model that helps us describe how something happens over time. You have a set of states like idle, loading, success or error, and you define the rules for moving from one state to another. A simple real-world example is a traffic light. It's always in one state and it can only transition in a predictable way. Now, why should you care about state machines? Because they bring clarity and structure to your code. Instead of writing endless if statements and handling edge cases in a messy way, state machines make your flow very predictable. You will always know what state your app is in and what can happen next and what cannot happen. This makes debugging easier. Your code makes your code very reliable and your apps are more scalable as you grow. Then we have event buses. An event bus is like a communication channel inside your app. Instead of components calling each other directly, they send and listen to events. For example, when a user logs out, that event can be broadcasted on the bus, and the different parts of the app can respond, maybe by clearing data, showing a toast or redirecting without being tightly linked together. So that one now reduces what we call decoupling. It enhances decoupling and reduces coupling. So when you combine state machines with event buses, you get a system where states are well defined and communication flows cleanly across your application. Together they make your apps more predictable, maintainable and powerful. In this tutorial, I will walk you through a simple state machine example in code, then show you how to use an event bus alongside it, and finally connect both concepts in a real-world scenario. Now, without further much ado, let us get into our today's session. So I have a folder here I call tutorials. I'm going to open it. Then I'm going to open my terminal inside the folder. Then from the terminal, I'm going to, let me just minimize that. I'm going to do what? From the terminal, I'm going to instantiate our application. We are going to work with React and Vite for the moment. So I'm going to npm create Vite at latest. I'm going to call our app state machines. So we give it a moment. So when it comes to selection, we select React. Then we are going to work with the TypeScript. Then it's done. Now we navigate out to our state machines. Then now we install our dependencies. So we npm I. We give it some minutes to install. Now there are so many libraries that do state machines, but for the moment we are going to work with XState, and for the event buses we are going to work with a library called Meet. I will explain all those ones how they work. So maybe while we are installing the dependencies, we can maybe open the documentation and pass through the libraries. So XState, let's see XState. Let's see what XState has to offer from the, let's see, it's quite, yeah, it's still installing. Let's watch from the docs, XState docs. So we are going to work with the, so this is the library that we are going to work with, XState. So basically, what is the far much importance of working with the state machines? It is simply one. A lot of times when you are doing normal state management using libraries like Redux, it is very possible to have stale states. That is, it's very possible to have it's very possible for maybe a flow to navigate to a certain state that is stale, like it has not passed through a certain state to go to another state. So with the state machines, it gives us the ability to do proper predictability, that we know the next state, and that we prevent our system from flowing back to a state that it has not yet been activated. So that is the major advantage of working with the state machines. So I don't know if everything has been installed. It's quite installing. Let's give it a moment. So let me just zoom. So XState is a state management and orchestration solution for JavaScript and TypeScript apps. It uses event-driven programming, state machines, state charts, and the actor model to handle complex logic in predictable, robust, and visual ways. XState provides a powerful and flexible way to manage application and workflow state by allowing developers to model logic as actors and state machines. It integrates well with React, Vue, Svelte, and other frameworks, and can be used in the front-end, back-end, and wherever JavaScript runs. So we have XState is available on NPM. You can look at it. So we have NPM install XState. Okay. Let's see. Just a moment. Let's look at installation. Okay. So NPM install XState. Quite very simple. So we have already installed everything. So let me just we will pass in the documentation, but it's more better we just go directly to the code so you understand while I code. So I just explain it how it flows. So let me minimize that, then I can open back my terminal, then I can of course clear everything, then open my VS Code on this. Then with that I can just because it's a Vite application, I can just npm run dev to run everything. Then I can open my Chrome from this. Then I can just navigate out to Vite, like that way. So from VS Code I can just open it that way, and I can maybe zoom so that it can be clearly seen. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the SRC folder, and from the SRC folder I'm going to clear everything from app.tsx. I just want to have a very clear thing, so I just clear everything. Then I can just remove this, then I can just come on the index.css, I can just clear everything. Then from app.css I can just clear everything. So let me just put some important margin 0. Let me just padding 0, box sizing 0, box sizing border box, just a minute, like that. So from here we want now to explain or show how state machines work. So state machines are models that enable us to keep proper track of our states in our application. So for instance, your application cannot be allowed to go to maybe pages, to be opened while it has not been authenticated. So your system has first of all to be authenticated before some other states to happen. And before maybe authenticating, there are maybe some steps, like maybe there is an anonymous state, there is authenticating, then there is the authenticated, and then now, because the state now is authenticated, the user of the application can be allowed now to access any part of the system. Now, just for a start, we need to install the libraries that we need to work with. First of all, let me install XState. So I'm going to open my terminal from there. So I can say, let me just zoom preferences. Just a minute. Okay, you can just work with it the way that it is. I can do npm install XState npm install XState, then XState React, then we give it some minute to get installed. Let us give it some minutes. So it has been installed. So for the moment we are going to work with the state machines alone. We won't touch on the event buses. So I will start from the state machines while I explain downwards and how the event buses bring an advantage to our system. So let me get started. So just to begin, I can just create a folder here and I call it components like that. Then from the components we can just begin simple with a traffic light machine. Then I can just say from the components we need to have machines. This one has to be for a folder. Let me just delete this. From the components, let me just create machines. Then from the machines we can just have okay, let me just clear this. Let me just clear the components. Let's just have a folder we call machines. Then from the machines I'm going to create a traffic light machine. Traffic light.machine.ts, that way. Now how do we navigate out this one? Now the first thing we do, we import something called create machine, like that. So import create machine like that. Now from what we have imported, then we go direct, we do export const traffic light machine. So we are basically defining our machine. So export const traffic light machine is equals to create machine. So we use now this function that we have imported from XState. Okay, so from here we open it that way. Then we do ID. We have to give it a unique ID. So it will be traffic light. Then from there we have to define the initial state. So from the initial state, it will be the initial state. We are going to assume that initially our traffic light machine is on the state red. It simply means stop. So initially the cars are stopping, so no car is moving. Then we can now define the states. So what will happen after red? So when it is in red state, let's say after maybe something like 400 seconds, we move to green. So when we are in the state of red, we cannot move maybe to color yellow or to color red again. The only move we can make when we are in red, we can only move to green. Okay, switch to green. So there is no way we can maybe shift to yellow if we have not passed it through green. Okay, so this is now how the state machines work. So the initial state, it is in color red. Okay, now when it is in red, it can only move to green. It cannot move to another color. Now this is the beauty of state machines. Now from red it moves to green. Now we need now to define from green it moves to what? After, let's just give it 300 seconds. it moves to yellow. Okay, now when it is green, it cannot move to red. So when the traffic lights are on green, they cannot move to red. So what happens is that in green state, the traffic lights can only be yellow. The colors that can light up only yellow, so not red. Now when we are now in yellow state, then we need maybe after 2 seconds, after 2000 millis, that is after 2 seconds. Now in yellow we cannot move to green. In yellow we can only move to red. Okay, now this one is the basic explanation of what I'm saying. This one is the basic explanation of what I am saying. So you cannot find your user accessing something when he has not been authenticated. So he has to be authenticated for him to access whatever, anything. Now that is now a real world application. Now this one is a little bit different from the normal state management that you do with maybe Jotai, you do with the Zustand, or you do with the Redux. Because at times you might find out, depending on who was implementing maybe the reducers or the actions, you find out that maybe through a wrong way of implementing, you find out a user accessing something when he is not in that state that is authorized to access whatever he has been given. Now the beauty of state machines is that a user cannot go back to a certain state until he has met certain credentials. So there is no way. It's very hard to have invalid states. It's very hard to have invalid states. Now from there, what I'm going to do is that I just want to keep it as simple as possible when you are beginning. So I go back to app.tsx here. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to import our traffic light machine. So I'm going to do what? Import traffic light machine that way. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to call, I want to know now the state. I want now to know the state. So const state is equals to use machine. Then I'm going to have traffic light machine this way. So const state is equals to use machine. Which machine? We are going to use traffic light machine. Okay, now from here we need to have I wish I would have installed Tailwind so that we can maybe move on very quickly, but there's no problem. We can just work with the normal CSS. So we can just do div we can just have so what I'm going to call this one, I'm going to call it maybe class circle. So let me just have this one as class circle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this class circle, then I'm going to go to index, then I'm going to maybe give it some simple styling. So I'm going to give it a width of 30 pixels, then height of 30 pixels, then I'm going to give it a border 2 pixel solid purple 290 340 like that. So with that I'm going to give it a rounded border radius. I'm going to give it 100%. So let's see from, so you can look at the way it looks like, but I can just increase this one to 40, this one to 40 now, because let me just come here, because I don't know why I have not installed Tailwind. Let me just have let's just have container there, then I can just come back here and say this container is going to be height 100 v height, then I'm going to have width 100%, display flex, justify, content center, align items center, gap 2 pixel 2 rem. So let me just give it something like 60, something like 80, just a minute. I do the, so I give it 80 that way. Now this one we give it something like 4 pixels. Let's give it something like 100 so that it can be more visible. 100. Now that one is done. Now let's do this. Now from this app.tsx, I'm going to copy this one into 3, 2. Then with that one I have something like that one. So I have 3 cycles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say from here, I'm going to have something like I'm going to have inline styling that is from React. Then I'm going to say state.machine is equals to maybe red. State.machine is equals to red. State.machine is equals to red. What I'm going to do, no, state.matches, supposed to be matches red. What I'm going to do, if now state.matches red, I'm going to have a background. The background is going to be red. If not, the background is going to be gray. Background is going to be, it's supposed to be like this. I don't know why I'd forgotten inline. I've worked so much with it, Tailwind. I've forgotten inline styling. So it's going to be background. Background is going to be, let's just have it gray this way. That way. Then of course I can just copy this one instead of constantly doing that. I can just copy it, come here, put it there, come here, put it there, come here, put it there. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to change now this one into green. If it matches green, supposed to be green. If not, yes, like if it matches yellow, so it was I don't know, so this one has to be here. I'm sorry, let me clear this one. It's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be green, supposed to be red, supposed to be green, supposed to be green. Then this one is supposed to be yellow. Then this one is supposed to be yellow. This way. So with that one, we can maybe see what is happening. So you can look at our states are transitioning. So this one is a symbol traffic light. So there's no way your state can be at red. There's no way your state can be at red and move to yellow. It first of all has to move through green. Then there's no way your state can be at yellow then move to green. It first of all has to be at yellow then to move to red. So you look at how we keep constraints using state machines. So that is the beauty of them. So they are such symbol. Now want to look at something. Now there's something called event buses. Now let's say you have different components across your application. Now when you are building an event driven system, you avoid making your components very coupled. So what we try to do is we make it very decoupled. You see, now this one is very important if we have to think of scalability, and you have to think about this system becoming great, this system becoming, the code base becoming big, maybe having different surfaces. You see, now when we keep on interacting the components directly, we end up building something that is very components interrelated. Now for us to come up with something that is more impactful, we have to think of maybe implementing something like WebSockets, just listening to what has happened, then fire a certain event. Now on the front end, there's something we call event buses. Now we just fire a certain event and trigger something to happen on a certain component instead of the components interacting directly. Now for that, in React we work with a certain library. There are so many libraries to do that, but as for me, I'm going to work with a library called Meet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to install Meet. So let me clear there, then install npm install Meet. Okay, that one has already been installed. So what we do, first of all, already this one has already been implemented. Now what we do first of all is, one, we first of all come back here. Let me just clear this one. Okay, what can I do? Let me come up with another component and I just call it, let's just define something like an out component. So this component will be, let's say, authentication component. Authentication component dot maybe TSX, this way, or like that way. For us to implement properly, we see how events work. Maybe you can implement a very small authentication system and see how now that one can work out and can play out. Now let's come back here now to the components. Let me come back to the machine and define a very good machine for authentication. So we have authentication auth.machine.ts that way. Now from there we can just see how we implement now, how we work with event buses on maybe a more broader perspective. Now before I move on, let me just show you something. Now if I come back here now to traffic light machine, I have a library. There's a library you have been given that can enable us now to visualize graphically, diagrammatically, how our states maybe flow. Now for you to install that library, you come now to the extensions and you search XState. When you search it, for me, I have already installed. You find it here. You install this one, the first one. Now after you have installed it on your machine, you will see something written here, open visual editor. Now when I open that visual editor, you can look at how the machine looks like grammatically. No, not grammatically, visually. So we first of all move from red to green, then move from green to yellow, then move from yellow to red. So there is no way you can move from yellow to green. It has to follow a certain systematic flow. Now that was the beauty of working with state machines. Now let's edit let's clear that. Let's just close that one. Now let's go back now to the using out the machine out. Let's just implement certain, maybe an authenticating, maybe a machine, something like that. So what we do, number one, we import. So we import create machine. Then what we do, we assign we import something called assign. Then from there we define an interface. For us, we are going to work with an auth context, an interface like that. Then from here, of course, when we are authenticating, because we're just implementing simple authenticating system, we need an user ID, which will not be a must, so we are going to give it a string. Then we need name, which is also not must, we are going to give it a string. So from there, I'm going to define another type. I'm going to call it type event. Type auth event. So I'm going to give it. You just need it to have type of. We need to have it type of login. Then we need to have a user ID. Which is going to be a string. It's going to be a string. Then we need a name, which is going to be a string. User ID. Now we need a comma here. That way. Then from here, or we need a type of logout. Type of logout. That way. Okay. Now what we do, we come now back here and we export const of the machine. Of the machine. Now from here is equals to create machine. We are going to create a machine like that. So of the machine is create machine. I installed GitHub Copilot for assistance. I don't know why it's not working. Yeah, GitHub Copilot. I don't know. But let's just work out. Let's just move. So I need an ID of auth. Okay. So initial it's logged out. Okay. So initially we are going to assume that the machine is on a state called logged out. So initially it's on logged out. So we need some context. And they are going to be of type auth context. So this is now where maybe we can store maybe the user information in the context, something like that. So we need maybe some types. Which we are going to work with context. Our type context. A type context is auth context. Then events. Is auth event. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to define now our states. Now initially you have to understand one thing. Initially the state machine is on logged out. So we are on logged out. We are already logged out. This one, that state. Now from logged out on. Now the first event that has to happen, we need to log in first of all. We need to log in. Now when we log in, this of course the target that we will have now to target. We are going to target logged in. Then of course we have to have our actions. That is of all we are going to assign. Of course we need to, on login we need to get the user information. So we are going to get the user ID. Then this user ID is going to, this user ID we are going to get it from the event dot user. So you are going to get it from event let's see user ID I'm going to get it from event user ID event. See, event supposed to be an arrow function. Event no, because this one is a self returning, it's supposed to be on one line, so it's supposed to be event just to be this way. So because we need to destructure, we need to have don't have to have that one, user event dot user ID, that way. Now we need now the second, the name, which is supposed to be event which is equals to, when we are simply returning on one statement, when we are writing arrow functions, we don't have to have the curly brackets, we can just write on one line, but it has to be one return statement. So it has to be event.name, that way. Then from now there, now this one is on logged out, this one is on logged out. So on logged out we can only log in. Okay, so on logged out we cannot log out on logged out. So on logged out we can only log in. Then on login, on logged in, what will now happen on logged in? On logged in, on we can only log out, log out, that way. Then we can now come here and we say target is equals to logged out, that way. Now from the actions we just need to assign our context as null, this way, our context as null. So we just need some null there, null context there. Then now from that one, now that one is done. Now we can just open our visualizer and see what's happening. So from what is happening, when we are logged out we can only log in. Okay, then on the login state we can only log out. So the action there now is log out. What are we now doing in our login state? We are going to log out. In our logged out state, what do we now want to do in our logged out state? We only want to log in back to the system. So now this one is the flow. But now understand one thing, we don't want to interact directly with the machine. Maybe probably this one is a large scale system. So what we are going to do, we are going to now implement our own events. So when a user wants to log in, instead of interacting directly with the machine, he fires a certain event. Now that event now triggers now the machine to work in the needed way. Now what I'm going to do, do not worry about this text that has been generated there by that functionality of visualizing. Just understand the flow. Don't worry about it. So what we are now going to do, we are going to define now the event bus. I'm going to define now something we call the event bus. So let's just have a very smart folder, we call it events, and you can now see that the folders are on small on lower cases, so you can just say events. So from the event I can just say event bus, then .ts, that way, event bus.ts. Can just say event, can just say event.bus.ts. Now from there I can just import meet from meet. Now these are libraries that make our work easier. There are other libraries that can work perfectly, fantastically, but meet is declared but its value never read. Don't worry about that. There are other libraries that can work much better, but I prefer, I like working with meet. Maybe you can, but the same functionality applies in all libraries. So export type app events app events is equals to login event. Of course, we need to define the events user ID, which is string. Then we need a name, which is string also. Now from there we need logout. We need a logout type. Remember, we are on TypeScript undefined. We need to define just it undefined. We can just put any, but it's not smart to have it that way. We can just work with the proper typings. Then you can just say notify. We need to have a message. We need to have a message which is going to give it of type string. So this one is just an event, maybe to notify the user what has happened. Then we need to have type. So this can either be in success or error. So in login, during login, we need to have whether is it successful or there is an error. Then what I'm going to do, export constant meter. Export constant meter is equals to meet. Then app events. That way. What's wrong? Quite interesting. Let me see. Okay, app events. What's wrong? Cannot find module meet. Oh, I have not installed it. Cannot find module or its corresponding type declarations. So I have not installed meet. Let's see. Oh, supposed to be double T. Let me install. Okay, double T. Let's see. Let's give it some minutes. So it has already been installed. So now we can now work with that one. But now we need also something very important. We need to define a hook. Something that now will now connect the machine with the events. So let me come here and define a folder. I call it hooks. Then from the hooks, I'm going to say use out the machine. It's supposed to be use out machine.ts. Now from there, I'm going to do what? I'm going to say, of course, there's what you need now to do from here. Let me say import. Of course, there are things we need to do. Okay, let me just import use machine. Then I do import out the machine. Then we need now to import a meter from the event bus. Then of course we need to import app events because we will need to work with them. Then we need to import any state machine. Oh wait, do we really need this? It's not a must. But let's see this one as an but okay, value not used. So I can just come here and say export function use out the machine. Use out the machine. Now this one receives a parameter we call maybe machine. That way. Then we can just say in const state, then send. We are just doing a normal destructure. Then is equals to use machine. Then out the machine. From there now we need then out the machine. But this one we need to give it a certain type. We need to use any state machine this way. So we give it that type. Now this one is complaining because it's okay. It has to be, we have to call it with type, because this we are importing a type, so we have to define it that way. Now there is no error. Just forget this highlighting there. Okay. Now how the machine, let's go back to how the machine.ts from here. How the machine, okay, everything is okay. Use how the machine, okay. So what I need now to do is use effect. So immediately the component refreshes, we need to do something. We need to do something. Then okay, they are the functions, of course, we need now to be able to execute. That is const undo login. Undo login is equals to payload, payload app events. Of course, it has to have types of events. The first one will be login. Then we just need to this one to be an arrow. Then you can now send type login. Then from the type login, it's not complete. Then you can now say user ID payload.user ID. Once you have understand the way this thing flows, you can work with AI, but it's good to understand how your code is working, so that you're not just mixing things you don't understand what's happening. So the first important thing, first of all, is to understand how the flow works. We first of all define the machine. We define now the event bus. Now from the event bus, we come out with the functionality now of mitigating both the machine and the event bus, but we can just interact directly from the event bus with the machine on our code base. But this one is the systematic flow we follow on industry-based level system. So there's that undo login. Then I'm going to define undo logout, const undo logout. This one is an arrow function. Then I'm going to send. Then on undo logout, I'm going to send type logout. Log out. So there is that now undo logout. Now we have done with that one. Now we want to define our emitter. What should our emitter do? Our emitter on, it has to listen to this event called login. On login, it has to call that function of undo login. Now this emitter on logout, it has to define this function of undo logout that way. Now from there we are going to do what we call returning. So we are going to return, what are we going to return? An arrow function. From this emitter dot off login, then we have to return, okay, on emitter off we have to return, of course, undo login. Then of course we have to emitter off, we have to log out, that is undo logout. This one is supposed to be off. Then of course now this one is it has to have a dependency array that is going to have send there. Now that one should only happen when sent, of course, happens. We all know how use effects work. So you are going to have another use effect. So let me just explain how this one now works. So we are going to have now from here, if state dot matches logged in. If state dot matches logged in, what do we want to do? Emitter, of course, now the message now we want now to emit notify. Remember what we had defined that type. Then this one is going, of course, to be going to have of message type, message user logged in. user logged in. Then we are going to give it a type called success. Type we said they have to be two. It's either a success or an error. So from there, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say if state.machine matches, if state.matches logged out, state.matches logged out, we are going to do what? We are going to do emitter.emit. We are going to do emitter.emit notify. I don't know, emitter.emit notify on logout notify. What are we going to message? User logged out. Then you are going to give it type success, which is supposed to be success that way. Now from there, now this one here, it has to have a dependency array, which is supposed to be, of course, what? Supposed to be state. Then we need now something like send. But now this one, what you are going to do, this one are going to return, we are going to return what? We are going to return state, then send. Then we are going to return, of course, like something like as const, like that way. Now this one is our hook. Let me just this one is our hook that is now going now to merge or mitigate, amalgamate the event bus and the machine. Now what you're going to do is very simple. After that one has been done, we need now to go to our app.tsx. But we already have certain event that is already working. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come up with our login component. Let me just or I can just do this. We can just come and okay, let me just have our login component. Let's just have a component called login components. Okay, let me just have our login page. Let's say we have a page called login. Let's say we have a page called login.tsx, like that. Login.tsx. Now, how do we implement this login? Of course, we are not doing we are not building a normal system. So, like, we are just trying to come up with something that can maybe used to explain this whole idea of events and state machines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a div element. So from this div, I'm going to have one h tag, one there. I'm going to say authentication example. Then from there, I'm going to have a div current state dot value. No, let me just let me just explain how these things are working. So let's do this. We need an authenticating example. Let me just go back to app.tsx. So let's do this. Let's comment this and let's import login. So this login, we are simply coming now to render it here, login. So when we now come back here, we see authenticating example. Now we need now to see what we have simply done now in action. So how do we now do that? So let us now do like that. So we need two functions. Number one, first of all, before we just work with, of course we need two functions, that is log out and login. So what we do, number one, we have to import use of the machine. Then from there we can maybe import import out machine, something like that. Then we can maybe import our emitter, import emitter. We import our own emitter. Then we need now to access the state of the system currently. So we are going to see const state end. Now this one is going to be use machine. Which machine? Out the machine. Now we need now to access the current state of the system. Accessing this current state we can just do it from the hook level, but let's just use hooks to interact with the events. But we can, that is maybe to avoid this system coupling like that, trying to keep everything in as much as very decoupled. So let's have const unto login. Now what I'm going to do, this one is an arrow function, so I'm going to say this one is going to be emitter dot emit. It is going to fire a certain event called login. Okay, now let's now after it has fired login, okay, when we do login, it has to fire a certain event called login. So what do we expect? Let's say maybe this user has a certain ID, maybe it's me. Let's say user ID called Dennis. Then we need of course a name because of the type. So we need a name. It's going to be Dennis Peter Munyao. So we have already done that. Now let's now do const normal logout, const undo logout. So this undo logout is going to be a function. We are going to drop something, then it's going to be sent, of course. Then you are going to be type of login. Then we need to do what? User ID. We need of course undo logout. Let's see, undo logout. Do we need, so let me just do this undo logout. I'm doing my own things here. Let me show you undo logout. Let me see const undo logout. Supposed to be on this undo logout. We need to have emitter. So this emitter is firing which event? Emit, supposed to be logout. That way. Now we need now to do this. We need now to come back here now and now try now to implement whatever we are trying now to say. Now what we are going to do, we are simply coming out to know. We need to find out now what is the current state. Now from this we need now to come back here. Okay, let me just have an h2 tag, h2 tag, current state. Then from the current state I'm going to have state dot value dot to string. Now that one, now this one now will give us now the current state. Now you can look at the current state. The current state of the system is currently logged out. Now we need now to come back now and see if, so we need now to come back and say no, that one does not apply in React. So you can say state dot matches, because we need now to find out if this guy is logged in. So if this guy is logged in, I'm going to say diff. So if this guy is logged in, we are simply going to say welcome state. From the context I pull name, like that. Now I can now come back here and say P, can say user ID. We need now to find out what is the user ID of this guy. So after we log in, we first of all now print out the name of this person. Now from the user ID, we say state dot context. I told you now this one, now we store it on the context. So we pull now user ID that way. Now what we are going simply to do, we simply want to state dot matches logged out. If this guy is on logged out state, we need to come here and say please log in. If this guy is logged out, we need to tell him please log in. Please log in, like that. Now from there we need, but now because he's currently logged out, we can now tell him please log in. So what we are simply going to do, we need to come up with a button to log in. So I'm going to come up with the diff. So we are going to give this button, we want to give it a margin top of 20 pixels, like that. Then from there I want a gap of 10 pixels, then we just want to display flex. Okay, display flex. Now from there we need just a button maybe to do login. Let's say this one is a button to log in via event bus. Let's say this one is an event driven system. So we can now say on click and to log out and to log in this way. Then we need to come up with another button that is a button to log in directly. So button to log in. Okay, let's just have another button to log out. Button on click and to log out. This one is for log out, but now we can now see. Okay, let's now see. So we have two buttons. The button is to log in via event bus, then another button is to log out. Let's see login via event bus. Let's see why it's not firing. Okay, you can see it's login. Let's see. Okay, on click and to login. Okay. Is there any where we have an error? Let's see. Let's try out and see. Everything is okay. Wow. So what is the issue? So let's try to find out what is the issue. Please log in. So undo login emitter. Okay, what is the issue? Okay. Okay, the problem is supposed to be this one. This one is supposed to be use out the machine. It's not supposed to be this. I'm sorry. It's supposed to be use out the machine. Use out the machine that way. Now you can now come here and refresh and see. Now, authentication example. So we logged out, we log in via the event bus. Now this one is via the event bus. Let's now try to see how we can log in directly. That is now why I imported this out the machine. Remember, we are not supposed to directly work with this one. We need to be working with the hooks and events to operate with our machines. But I imported this. So let's now try to see how we can maybe directly work. We can directly interact with all the machine. So I'm going to have a login. Let me just come back here and say button. Okay, login directly. So login directly. Now this one is not interacting with the event. Login directly. So I'm going to say const login directly is going to return a certain, it's going to be a function, of course. Then I'm going to say what? I'm going to say when we log in directly, we want to send a certain, now we are interacting directly with the machine. So we are going to say type what? Type login, of course. Now this one is login directly via the hook, of course, because of this use hook. We are logging directly, but we are not interacting with the machine directly that way. So we need login, user ID. So this user ID, I'm going to give this one, this user ID. Then from that user ID, I want to have a name. From the name, I'm going to give it Dennis Peter Munyao. That way. Then I'm going to copy this one, login directly. Then I'm coming and I'm going to say on click login directly. Login directly that way. So let's try now to see. So if I now I can't log in because now the state currently is on login state. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in, log out. Then I can now log in directly. You can now look at, I have now logged in directly. Now if I do now log in, it cannot work because this is the beauty of working with the state machines. It prevents you working with being in an invalid state. So there is no way we can log in while we have already logged in. So I can now log out. I can now log in via the event bus. So I have logged in. So I can log out. Log in via the event bus. Log out. Log in via directly. Okay, that way. Now the best way now to understand whatever I have explained is to repeat again the tutorial. While you are doing coding, you can work with AI tools, ChatGPT, you can work with GitHub Copilot, you can work with Casa, you can work with Cloud, maybe to figure out maybe where there are bugs, and maybe you can find out, maybe you are having problems, maybe trying to navigate out. But the most important thing is understanding the flow of events. That is the most important thing. So enough of that is done. I'm going to generate more content on this to make sure that we understand and we dive deeper and we become more better and more better in whatever we do. So we do not just become developers, but we become good engineers in whatever we do. So enough of that. Have a good time.